Okay. I said before we began the lesson that I had some groundbreaking information. All right? Hold on to your hats here. All right. You princes, you prince, hold on to your mitries. Sisters, hold on to your scarves. For years, there have been a misunderstanding of the prophecies concerning the time period the Israelites were in Egypt. I noticed through Farrakhan's speeches, he say over and over again that there's a comparison of the 400 years in Egypt to the 400 years that black people have been enslaved in America, to try to use that as a point of emphasis concerning a prophetic deliverance after 400 years. I noticed also that many Israelites would teach that there had been a 400-year prophecy from 1620 to the time the truth would come 400 years later, that we were Israelites in America. And that's a 400-year period paralleling to the 400 years in Egypt. Now, here's the problem. You have Egyptologists out there disputing the validity of the Bible due to some of these 400-year prophetic claims, because according to their archaeology and historical record, their argument is that there's no documented 400 years of a foreign people being in Egypt. And they say even if you use the Hyksos, you're only looking at about a 200-year period. Half of the 400-year prophecy, which they say is contained in the Bible. So Egyptologists dispute the Bible because they say there's a 400-year prophecy of captivity, or a past captivity of a people that is not documented in Egypt. Well, we're going to show that the Egyptologists going further don't have to or can't use that as a contradiction or to why they don't follow the Bible. We personally went into a timeline, and we did a personal timeline from creation of Adam up unto Egypt that will lead to a timeline throughout the earth. That's what we're working on now. And we went through each father time period from Abraham all the way to Moses' exodus out of Egypt at the age of 80. Even the time period that Joseph went into Egypt when he first came in, years before his brothers came down into Egypt. Joseph was 17 when he was sold into the Egyptians. He was 39 when his father, Jacob, and his brethren came into the land. So that's why they couldn't recognize him. A step-by-step chronological timeline was done through this church. And we realize, according to the time period, that Israel was not in Egypt 400 years. And that the prophecy of Abraham had nothing to do with the captivity of Israelites for 400 years. And the Bible backs that up. If you rightfully divide the word, you'll understand that the Bible never said Israel will be in captivity for 400 years. Now let's go through the scriptures and I'll show you. Now I went through this backwards and forwards, and then we was on early in the morning, I'm going back and forth with the brethren, Jay and the twins over in the UK, and we was dealing with a timeline from alternative sources too that gave more detail of each year that links directly with the Bible ages on when one of the sons of the patriarchs, or one of the children of the patriarchs, or men of the patriarchs were born, when did they die, when did they go into this land or that land. And we did a chronological timeline from the beginning all the way to the exodus of Egypt. And there's no way you can get 200, there's no way you can get 400 years of captivity. It's impossible. And so we keep regurgitating that amongst ourselves, that's telling the historians that have the secular history. That makes it where we're not credible, because the time period we're claiming cannot be corroborated historically. But we're going to show you. Now, what happens to all the claims that we're supposed to be in America for 400 years, according to the prophecies of Egypt, if you find out that the Israelites were not in Egypt for 400 years? Now, the Bible is not false. It's how people have been breaking down the Bible without actually going into the timeline of each person. Because the Bible actually tells you what that 400 years is. And it's not captivity. Let's go there. Let's go to Genesis.
Genesis 15, I'll start at verse 8.
Yes.
And he said, Lord, whereby shall I know that I shall inherit it?
It's speaking of the promises that was given to Abram, our father Abram.
Verse 9. And he said unto him, Take me an heifer of 3 years old, and a she-goat of 3 years old, and a ram of 3 years old, and a turtle dove, and a young pigeon. I'll jump down to the point, verse 12.
Go ahead.
And when the sun was going down, a deep sleep fell upon Abram, and lo, and horror of great darkness fell upon him. And he said unto Abram,
This is what he said unto Abram.
Know of a surety,
that thy seed, now keep in mind, who's Abram's seed?
Mm-hmm.
Isaac. Isaac is Abram's seed. See? The promises first started with the promised child. See? Know a surety that thy seed
shall be a stranger in a land that is not theirs.
Now it's expanding beyond Isaac to who? Jacob and his children. But it starts with Isaac, and I'm going to prove it. Read.
And shall serve them, and they shall afflict them 400 years.
And they shall what?
And they shall afflict them 400 years.
When you break that down in the Hebrew, it doesn't say there's a 400-year affliction. It doesn't say that. It says they shall serve as a guest 400 years and be afflicted. That's the breakdown of the Hebrew. We're going to have it up on our site soon to show you what the Hebrew says. And guess what? The Bible corroborates it. The time period of that time, that 400 years. Read.
Verse 14. And also that nation whom they shall serve.
And that nation whom they shall serve.
Will I judge, and afterward shall they come out with great substance.
So for many years, we've been interpreting this as the captivity of Israelites in Egypt. Erroneously. It says after this, what?
Shall they come out with great substance.
They shall come out with great substance. You're going to find that the Most High was sending the children, Abram and his son Isaac in Egypt to prepare them to accept Israel down the line so that the substance that's accumulated could be utilized once the family go out to establish the new land. So that prophecy was an accumulation of time from Abraham, Isaac to Jacob, so that they can get the substance needed for the new promised land. It's a time period. I'm going to show you. Read.
Verse 15. And they shall go out to thy And thou shalt go out to thy fathers in peace, and shall be buried in a good old age. But in the fourth generation.
But in the what is giving us a time period now. In the what?
But in the fourth generation.
In the fourth generation.
They shall come hither again.
They shall come back to this land. You cannot get 400 years between the captivity and Israel going out. Because it says in the fourth generation, from you, Abram, they're going to come back and get this land that's being promised to you. You cannot get 400 years in that. So how can we resolve that to break down that 400-year prophecy correct, is what you're asking. Let's go to Exodus 12.
Exodus chapter 12, verse 40.
Read.
Now the sojourning of the children of Israel.
That's the key. The sojourning of the children of Israel.
Now the sojourning of the children of Israel, who dwelt in the land of Egypt.
Who dwelt in the land of Egypt.
Was 430 years.
So we sojourned with them for 430 years. We wasn't afflicted by them for 430 years. And you're going to find that sojourning was the time that that Abram and Isaac went into Canaan and went into Egypt 200 some odd years earlier. I'm going to show you. Read.
And it shall come to pass at the end of 430
years. At the end of 430 years.
And it came to pass at the end of 430 years.
From the time of what? The promise. And I'm going to show you. Read.
Even the selfsame day it came to pass that all the host of the Lord went out from the land of Egypt.
Now, this is a prophecy fulfilling the promises of Father Abram, right? In Genesis 15. Now, I need you all to go with me to Galatians, the 3rd chapter. Stick with me here. And we're going to start at around, what, 15?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Galatians chapter 3, verse 15.
Go ahead.
Brethren, I speak after the manner of men. Though it be but a man's covenant, yet if it be confirmed, no man disannulleth nor addeth thereto. Now to Abraham and his seed.
And to Abraham and his seed.
Were the promises made.
Were the promises made.
He saith not unto seeds as of many, but as of one, and to thy seed, which is Christ.
Which is Christ. Now who would bring forth Christ? The promises went through who? Abraham to Isaac. And then the Most High told him to take him to Mount Moriah in Genesis 22 to sacrifice his son as a similitude of the son that would come in the future for the sins of the nation so that the promises would get fulfilled. So that was Christ through who? Through Isaac, the child of promise. Read.
Verse 17. And this I say.
And this I say.
That the covenant.
That
was confirmed before of the Most High in Christ, the law, which was 430 years after.
Hold up. The law came 430 years after the promise was given. So now we got that 430 years between the promise, when the seed would go in, when you would see Isaac go in to the land of Canaan and into Egypt, from the time Israel went out of Egypt and received the law. Read that again. It was in the Bible the whole time.
16. Now to Abraham and his seed were the promises made. Salaki, verse 17. And this I say that the covenant was confirmed before of the Most High in Christ. The law, which was 430 years after.
So the law came 430 years after the prophecy was fulfilled of that seed, Isaac, going into Canaan. So what we did is did the research and say, well, when did Isaac go into Canaan? After his mother Sarah died. I mean, went into the land of Canaan after his mother Sarah died. And then even before that, there was refuge right before the promise where Abram went into Egypt and taught them arithmetic and all that to establish the relationship. so that Israel would leave out with substance 430 years later. So from Abraham in the promise and Israel receiving the law is 430 years, not 400 years of captivity. Now you got me? Now, let's show you some history now to corroborate that. Now, before we go there, let's go to the Septuagint. The Septuagint was the original Old Testament translated. And it breaks down that promise of 430 years, chapter and verse.
This is the Septuagint, book of Exodus, chapter 12, verse 40.
This is what it says in Exodus 12, verse 40. In the Septuagint, which was the original translation of the Old Testament. Read.
And the sojourning of the children of Israel, while they sojourned in the land of Egypt, and in the land of Canaan, was 430 years.
Was 430 years. So in the new translation, they left out "and the land of Canaan." Because why? There's a connection between the two concerning the time Abram received the promise. Where Abram went into Egypt, and later him and Isaac went into the land of Canaan. 430 years before the law was given. So how long was Israel in Egypt? Let's go into the book of the Josephus.
This is book of Josephus, book 2, chapter 15, paragraph 2.
Read.
They left Egypt in the month Xanthicus, on the 15th day of the lunar month, 430 years after our forefather Abram.
430 years after our forefather Abram what?
Came into Canaan.
Came into Canaan.
But 215 years.
But 215 years.
Only after Jacob removed into Egypt.
So from the time our father Jacob went into Egypt, somewhere between 210 and 215 years. Nowhere near 400 years of captivity. Only in the last few years were we afflicted in Egypt. Half of that time we ruled. We ruled in Egypt for almost 100 years. And the other half, which is the last 100 year, was the time we were afflicted. So we weren't afflicted in captivity in Egypt for 400 years. We were in Egypt ruling for about 100 years and was in captivity for only 100 years. And I'm putting that out there so that we can set the record straight when it comes to these prophecies. Okay? You cannot compare America to the captivity of Egypt with time period. You're not rightly dividing the word of truth by doing so. If you're looking at the time period of our time in Egypt from the promises of Abraham, you should not be focusing on the captivity but the promises. So many people try to get deep and say, well, 400 years of Egypt, 400 years of America, as if America is the all to end all when it comes to prophecy, when our people are spread all over the earth and went into captivity and serving other nations well before there was a slave ship going to the shores of America. That's an error. Now, for those who still believe that prophecy is speaking of us being in Egypt for 400 years, I need you to go to the time Jacob went into Egypt at the age of 17. And look at Joseph, excuse me. Joseph went into Egypt at the age of 17. I stand corrected there. I've just mixed up the names there. And do a personal chronology table to the ages of those that were in Egypt to the time of the Exodus. And show me where you get 400 years at. It don't exist. During the Hyksos period, we ruled for about 100 years. But through that whole time of the promises, the Most High knew there was substance in Egypt that we would need for the new homeland, the land of the promise. So the Most High had us sojourn in Egypt since Abram so that we can develop that relationship. So when the famine happened, we would go into Egypt and develop that relationship, that bond stronger, so that now at the very end, the Egyptians will give us all the substances we need going into the wilderness to make our own land. So that's why we came out of Egypt with much substance. It was because the Most High blessed the land based on us being there, so that we can take that substance to build our own home. So I hope you have that clear now. Anytime you hear someone say there's a 400 years of captivity and America have to go through that 400 years, that's an error. What else you have there?
I got two more references.
Okay, let's
real
go.
quick. This is the book of Jasher, chapter 81, verse 3.
The book of Jasher, 81, verse 3.
Through 4. And the sojourning of the children of Israel who dwelt in the land of Egypt in hard labor was 210 years.
See that? So you have to give it a few years, give or take, based on the historical timeline. You understand? But again, it's nowhere near 400 years.
Okay.
Read.
Verse 4. And at the end of 210 years, the Lord brought forth the children of Israel from the land of Egypt with a strong hand.
Crystal clear. It's in Scripture. Why is that important? As we come close to the end, the Most High is clearing up all these discrepancies so that we're without excuse. So if anyone out there teaching that Israel was in captivity for 400 years, you're in error, and according to historians, you're not credible. And for Egyptologists out there who've been using that as a pretext to say the Bible is tampered with, what now? The Bible never said Israel was in captivity for 400 years. Now what? You're going to believe the Bible now? Okay, so that clears up the timeline of the Hyksos and the dynasties. The whole issue was looking at that 400 years and trying to figure out, well, where's all these kings that should be in between these 400 years? And no one could ever get the timeline right correctly when it came to the pharaohs that ruled, because he was trying to get many pharaohs, or, you're trying to get a few people into this span of 400 years. An impossibility. So we're talking what? 210 to 215 years maximum, which can be historically documented through the Hyksos. See? What else you have, Lloyd?
One more reference. Now, earlier this week, we went over the Septuagint verse of the children of Israel in Egypt. Here's the Samaritan Pentateuch, which further clarifies what we read in both the Bible and the Septuagint. Exodus 12 and 40. Now the sojourning of the children of Israel and fathers of them.
And what?
And fathers of them.
So it's including Abram and Isaac and the Pentateuch.
Who dwelt in Canaan and in Egypt.
Canaan and in Egypt.
Was 430 years.
Crystal clear. There was no 400-year captivity. All right now. All praises be to the Most High. He's clearing it up as we go. So now for those who are trying to say, well, we're not supposed to leave Babylon because it says a 400-year period from Egypt. We have to fulfill that whole 400 years here in our captivity. That's out of there. Because the Most High is not just concerned with our little captivity in America, when America is only 5% of the inhabitable places on earth. The Most High, when he speaks of his prophecy, he's not speaking of some ships coming to the shore of a country, then he start counting. Especially when all the other tribes of Israel are scattered throughout the four corners of the earth. So how can you document a time strictly on the time your parents been on the shores and not count the times that our other people have been enslaved before the transatlantic slave trade? See? Hope that clears that up, and I can't wait until we sitting down and dealing with these Egyptologists, which are coming soon, because I believe that as we show them the truth, that they'll realize it wasn't the Bible that was tampered with. It wasn't the Bible that was wrong. It was the different doctrines teaching untruths. And Egyptologists started to believe that what they were saying was actually in the Bible. So we could bring our people back and say, well, listen, this is what's really going on here. The Bible is the only book that can really corroborate and tie all things together concerning our condition and our deliverance. And that's the point, to spread the gospel. Well, I think that this alone will be a key breaking point or an icebreaker for those who knew that Israel wasn't in Egypt for 400 years under captivity. All right? And I'm sure they'll try to jump someplace else, but at least they won't have this to stand on anymore, right? With that, I'm going to say shalom. I'll answer questions for 5 minutes because we ran over the time. And, all right, let's see here. Let me answer a few questions here. 5 minutes. Do mosquitoes have diseases in them? Bill Gates mosquitoes do. Can you post in the Septuagint? It's the same chapter and verse in the Bible. Mm-hmm. Exodus the 12th chapter, the 40th and 45th verse, 40th and 41st verse. Tracy Foster have joined the academy but have not received any other lessons after week 2. The young Judah. Send an email. We'll take care of that separately here. Send an email and we'll correct that. All right, what's the questions here? Let's start up here.
See, it's jumping quite a bit.
All right, let me pause it. I'm going to pause it here. Yeah, so it can't jump. I'm sorry about that. Go ahead.
It says, Elder, can you explain John 3:16 through 18? Who is this people? Who is this speaking of as people?
John 3:16. Let's go ahead. That's easy. That's a simple. John 3:16.
John 3:16.
Read.
For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whosoever believeth in him should not perish, but have everlasting life.
So who's this world, you may be asking in John? Because we're taught in Christianity that this world is everybody, no matter who you are, that Christ was speaking about. So we have to stay in John to understand who is this world. So hold that and get John 13:1 and John 17:9.
St. John chapter 13, verse 1.
We're going to find out who that world is, according to the same John that wrote John 3:16.
Now before the feast of the Passover, when Yeshua knew that his hour was come, that he should depart out of this world.
That he should depart out of this world.
Unto the Father.
Unto the Father.
Having loved his own.
Having loved his who?
Having loved his own.
Everybody?
Having loved his own.
Having loved who?
His own.
His own, O-W-N.
Which were in the world.
So now we have established that that world is his own within the world. Right?
He loved them.
Everybody?
He loved them.
Read.
Unto the end.
Unto the end. Now hold that and get John 17:9.
St. John chapter 17, verse 9. I pray for them.
I pray for them.
I pray not for the world.
So Christ prayed for his own. He prayed not for the world. So that world in John 3:16 cannot be all encompassed. It can't encompass it all like they're interpreted in the church when it tells us that he prayed for his own which are in the world. I pray for them. I pray not for the world. See? So let's go back to John 3:16.
John 3:16. For the Most High so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son.
Okay, let's find out who that world is. Let's see who his own